Hello and welcome back to what was described on YouTube last week as terrible investigative journalism. And it's almost as if it's actually called Lapdown and F1 Chat and not Lapdown Investigative Journalism. But anyway, I'm Alex and I'm here to do some investigating, and that's Dan over there, and he's not here to do investigating, but we are here to talk about F1. Dan, how are you doing?
I'm good. That's a weird comment, isn't it?
It was in response to us not knowing, and this is an official retraction and apology coming up here as well. This was in response to us not knowing exactly what Mercado Libre was.
Oh.
Yeah, how dare we not know that it's a South American Amazon and that we thought it was a supermarket.
Was this the same Mercado Libre that sponsored the Argentine Formula One driver that has his headquarters in Montevideo in Uruguay and is incorporated in Delaware in the United States?
I think you're trying to get us in trouble now with your investigative journalism. That's what I think. It's race week, Dan. It's
Suck it.
Week.
We're two back. Formula One fans. We're here to chat shit about Formula One. If you don't like it, just get in the bin. No one cares what Mercado Libre is. No one cares if it's trying to suck off Amazon. If you want that kind of podcast, go and find some boring bastard that wants to talk about business and things. But we don't want to talk about that. We want to talk about cars going round circles quickly.
There you go. Dan's come out swinging. In terms of his e-commerce and his retail. No, I mean, hey, we might have some new friends on board with this week now that we are once again the official, unofficial Franco Colapinto podcast. This is not hard-hitting journalism, and this is not literally anything more than an F1 chat. The clue is in the name, and we've got a few things to talk about.
Yeah, we have. We got Christian Horner. He's under a bit of pressure, apparently. Maybe. Who knows? Imola might be nearly finished. Colapinto, the preferred driver of the Lapdown podcast, will make his Alpine.
Here we go. That's the level of investigative journalism we do here.
Alpine.
It's a tree.
I quite like the word
It's a
Alpine.
region.
Alpine debut. Ferrari and Hamilton. Maybe there's trouble there because Hamilton's unfollowed Ferrari on Instagram and they're hugely disappointing, allegedly. Formula One turned 75. And of course, we have the most important part of any Formula One podcast in the history of Formula One podcast. But we have the Dan versus AB Wheel of Misfortune Formula One World Championship Mystery Lottery Drivers.
That's that one.
Sponsored by Mercado Libre.
Yes.
Maybe. We're open to it.
Market.
Delaware, Uruguay, Montevideo, maybe Argentina. Who knows? Get involved.
In. Where should we start, Dan? Where should we start?
Should we talk about the Imola Grand Prix generally? Let's get that out of the way
might
first.
Might be our last chance to talk about the Imola Grand Prix. Sorry, what's the Imola Grand Prix?
Oh, it's got a great name. I've already forgotten. Wasn't it sponsored by like MSC Cruises for a while or something like that?
I think last year it was MSC Cruises, and this year they've moved to AWS.
It is. AWS, that's not Mercado Libre, is it?
No.
AWS is something similar but isn't the same.
It's not even similar. AWS is just online servery warehouse, data warehousey stuff. All the stuff your classic F1 fan likes.
I remember when Formula One was sponsored by cigarettes and alcohol and condoms and stuff, and now we're sponsored about boobs. Yeah, now we're sponsored by online servers.
The Formula One boobs Gran Premio made in Italy dell'Emilia-Romagna 2025.
What on earth have we come to? Like there was cars with MTV on it and Playboy and Durex and stuff like that and Johnny Walker and Marlboro, and now we're talking about bloody online servers. But anyway, it is the Formula One AWS Gran Premio made in Italy DELL'EMILIA-ROMAGNA 2020. Where's made in Italy come from? What's that got to do with? Why is AWS made in Italy, or is the Gran Premio made in Italy, or is Emilia-Romagna that's in San Marino made in Italy?
Look, there's a lot of valid questions there. I'm going to assume that the made in Italy has to be like a tourist boardy element, right? But
why is it in English?
Well, because to be fair, there's no point doing tourism in your own language if that language isn't spoken in the places that you're trying to attract the tourists from.
Fair point.
But is this the only... assuming that is somewhere vaguely near the truth, and I don't know, I'm not an investigative journalist, but this would be the only race with sort of two quote-unquote sponsors in it, which does beg the question of where do we draw the line of... percentage of title taken up by sponsors versus percentage of title related to the actual event. But it might not matter soon anymore because it's out of contract at the end of the year, whatever you'd like to call it. We're going to call it Imola for the rest of the podcast. It's out of contract, and there's kind of no space for it next year, I don't think. There might be one Grand Prix worth of gap left on that calendar, I think, if you look at the current active contracts.
It'll be replaced by a street circuit somewhere in the States, won't it? Let's be completely honest. I have made some news about. I've done some investigative journalism, and it might be relevant. It might not be wrong, but Made in Italy was actually a 2020 film, hour and 34 minutes, about a Bohemian artist travels from London to Italy with his estranged son to sell the house they inherited from their late wife/mother.
I'm going to be honest with you,
directed by James Darcy, if you've ever heard of him.
I don't think we're beating the allegations with this.
Rating is 6.
This journalism is not helping us beat the accusations.
Hey, I investigated.
True.
Might be wrong. I investigated. I love Imola, but I think I love Imola for what happens or what's happened in the past when cars were normal sizes and cars could overtake one another. I don't think, as much as it pains me to say it, that Imola is a good Formula One circuit for modern Formula One cars. So of one of those two things, something has to change. And unfortunately, I don't suddenly think these Formula One cars are suddenly going to become smaller, because I dare say the smaller they are, the probably more dangerous they are to the people sat in the middle of them. I would imagine the size has got to be an element to do with safety as much as anything, which is a shame, because Imola's great. It's a great circuit. I've done it on computer games and it's really fun to drive, which is a measure that we've had in the podcast before. And there's history there, but it just doesn't feel like it works, does it? It's not to say that the Tampa Bay Grand Prix works, but I don't think Imola does.
No. And I think it's true of half the tracks on the grid, which is the other problem, that it's not necessarily a track problem, it's a car problem. And I think that was proven in the last couple of weeks, that Formula E had a banging Monaco Grand Prix with overtakes out the arse in basically pick a corner on the track, and they were trying to get past each other around it. It wasn't build up your overtake for one lunge over 8 laps and there's one corner you can do it in, and because there's only one corner, the bloke you're trying to overtake knows exactly when it's coming, because it's going to be at that corner. It's just a case of which lap is it going to be. You know, I watched I didn't watch the whole Formula E Monaco Grand Prix, but I watched the highlights, and it was like 8 or 9 minutes of highlights. It was blokes going past each other, and then 2 laps later they've been overtaken again back the other way, and we've got overtakes through the tunnel. We've got, it proved that, because those FE cars are, it's probably not quite this small, but they're half the size of Formula One cars, and so they can dash about all over the place. And I'm not expecting a banger this weekend at Imola because of that exact reason. It's not a super easy track. There's a couple of places that you can get it wrong around Imola, and there's a couple of spots where there should be overtaking. I don't think it's even a track design problem, but I don't think we'll see it next year. And like you said, I don't think the cars are going to suddenly get wildly smaller. There's a decent chance we don't see Imola for a while after this, I think. I don't think this is going to be a rotation circuit unless Made in Italy throws a huge amount of money towards it. I think
good film. 6 stars.
Could be 6 stars. Wow.
Out of 10.
Right. I think this could be our last Gran Premio del Made in Italy, Emilia-Romagna.
Yep. I think, unfortunately, that's probably the way that the sport is going to go. It's on its way, isn't it? Away from Europe. It's moving further afield. It's finding new homes around the world. And I suppose from a very selfish and biased perspective, we've been spoilt over the last 75 years of Formula One, that it has been predominantly European sport, and that's where the fandom has come from up to the last 5 years. But it has increased, which is good for Formula One, but it does mean that actually Europeans, we're not going to get as many Grand Prix as what we potentially would have liked and what we were used to. But somebody else that might not get as many Grand Prix as what they would like and what they might be used to is Christian Horner, AB. That's a good segue, wasn't it? That was good by me in this investigative retail journalism podcast that
Just
you tuned in
quietly,
for.
investigative, about as easy to say as AWS Grand Premio del Made in Italy Emilia-Romagna. Not an easy word.
It's a tough word for a smooth-brained pleb like myself.
Well, as a terrible investigative journalist.
Exactly. But anyway, he's under pressure,
Yes.
apparently. Nothing to do with the fact that he got his cock out a couple of years ago,
Nope.
but this is because Red Bull are underperforming.
And is that Christian's fault?
Well, at the end of the day, he's the bloke at the top, isn't he? And he's going to be the guy that will take the plunge for it. But I dare say some of the assets that they've lost over the last couple of years might have a contributing factor to their kind of downfall that they're on at the moment. But it's funny, isn't it? I was looking through, with this 75th anniversary, they posted up something about the list of kind of world titles that people have won. And Sebastian Vettel was there on 4. He won all of those with Red Bull. And Max Verstappen is currently there with 4. And it almost looks a little bit like at the moment that history is repeating itself, isn't it? Red Bull had that domination era, which I appreciate would have been before your time, with Sebastian Vettel, won 4 on the bounce, and everyone thought, holy shit, this bloke's going to break every record going. Is it happening again? But Christian Horner survived that. Does he survive it a second time round?
So we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, and my big question with the Horner stuff is why now? Like, and you touched on it there. We've had the dick or finger game, but like, does that team is currently in a rocky, turbulenty period? Does removing the team principal midway through the season, after week 1 of a triple header, I don't think that calms the waters. I don't feel like that makes... I mean, we talked about this last week with the pit stops and stuff. They're a really nice indicator. I think they're a barometer of that things are not operating smoothly. And it just... I mean, Horner's been there... How long have Red Bull existed? 20 years? And he's been there for the entirety of that. So you can't tell me that that's going to be an easy transition to go from the only team principal you've ever had to someone entirely new. And it's not like it can be Wheatley anymore, because Wheatley's gone, isn't he? It's not as if there's a logical number 2 there. I think we all know that when Toto leaves Mercedes, it's going to be old mate Jimmy V. You know, he is being incubated at Williams, bar something silly happening. Williams are incubating Jimmy B for Mercedes. There isn't that at Red Bull. So it would be wildly stupid to me. And I'm not saying I'm a Christian Horner fan. I don't really give a shit about the bloke, to be honest. I think he's a wonderful shit stirrer. I don't have any opinion about guilty or not guilty through all of the dick or finger stuff or whatever. You can't argue with what the bloke's done at the start of that team. And I just don't see how ripping the carpet under yourselves midway through a season, or a quarter of the way through a season, that's not going brilliantly helps anything or anyone.
No, I agree. I completely agree. We spoke about it last week, and let's not go back over it again, but it does feel like the last days of Rome at Red Bull. It feels a bit panicked, doesn't it? It's interesting as well that the mechanic that's kind of recently left Formula One and written a book and all of this stuff. It just feels like it's not an expose book, is it? But it just, I don't know. There's something not quite right going on there. And I don't know whether Adrian knew he jumped ship before he saw the writing on the wall. Obviously, he's a very shrewd guy and potentially sticking around in a business that maybe doesn't go quite as well, isn't what he wants on his CV. I don't know. But, I mean, the big question is really, they're talking about the fact that he could be out after this weekend if Red Bull don't do well. But what is well for Red Bull? I mean, they're sat second in the Constructors. Max is third in the World Drivers' title. They've completely cocked up their second driver. But what is well? What would be a good weekend that constitutes Christian Horner keeping his job?
Well, they're not even second in the Constructors now. They're third now.
Have they gone past? Have they got past them?
Mercedes are ahead of them now by 36 points. So they are quite comfortably in third. I mean, they've got Ferrari in their DRS at the minute, and Ferrari are equally in a shambles. It's a real shambles DRS train going on there. There isn't one. There literally isn't one, and it's the same as the conversation with Lawson and Sonoda, and it's the same as situation as Colapinto coming in this weekend, is that there are so many moving parts in the word well in the sense of Formula One, because it's all contextual. That car at the minute is not as quick as other cars. They've been talking about this big old upgrade package for a while. I think there's rumours that Imola was where that package is coming. If not, it's certainly soon. But that's still only going to massively help one side of that garage. I like Yuki Tsunoda a lot. He is not near Max Verstappen's level, right? So, okay, an upgrade might help Max fight for wins again, but a big old upgrade that takes Max up 2 places takes Yuki from 11th to 9th, and he's still not achieving a lot. Oh, what is well? I mean, we've only got like half an hour on this podcast for me to ponder what well is. A not embarrassing weekend, I guess. But then what's a not embarrassing weekend? Like, is a Red Bull finishing 5th and 6th a good weekend at this point? Is that, oh, you did well, you finished 5th and 6th. If they're Williams, 5th and 6th, happy days. Great weekend. If we're now at the point that we're talking about Williams and Red Bull fighting for the same good weekend spots, there's a big problem there. So, is as much as I've got for you.
No, that's completely fair.
Yeah, and but the other problem I think you've got, where have these stories bubbled up from? Jos Verstappen. Where have these stories bubbled up from? Because in Formula One, very, very rarely does a story break mass media out of absolute bollocks, right? There's always something that someone that should have a decent idea tells a journo. Now, whether or not they actually know the truth, whether that ends up coming true or whatever, different story. So this is either a very well orchestrated slander campaign from someone, but then again, we've seen Christian Horner has come out squeaky clean enough from plenty of those already. Or there is some truth to this, because otherwise it was like Hamilton to Ferrari. It all popped up and everyone went, that's fucking stupid. And then 2 days later, it had happened. So where's it coming from? Why is it coming up like that? And then if they don't bin him in Imola, they came out and said, didn't they? No, it's bollocks.
Yeah.
If they don't bin him off after Imola, then they're saying that they're happy for now. But then if they do, they're saying they're not happy, but they don't know how they do. Yeah. I
don't know.
Wow. Imagine that being your job, by the way, and you're sitting there going, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to be good.
Yeah. It would be, I don't know, with the fact that this year feels like a bit of a non-event and 26 is the one that people are building to, it would seem weird, I think, to chop out a guy at the top without letting them have that kind of new regs world to develop, I think, anyway, because it does feel like a bit of a non-event of a year, particularly with the way that McLaren are like storming away at the top of the table and nobody really can match them. But another team that can't match them, as you just mentioned, is Ferrari. So with that kind of amalgamation and mush up of words that you tried to put together of what is good, you might have to do that again in Italian in a minute. But Hamilton's unfollowed Ferrari on Instagram. He's unfollowed his own dog as well. So I don't necessarily think Ferrari are kind of exclusively being penalised here. But there's some other headlines as well, and Sky Sports have said that Ferrari, and they've used the word hugely disappointing. Now, just to put it into context, Charles Leclerc is 5th, Hamilton is 7th, and they're 4th in the Constructors, 11 points behind Red Bull. Is it hugely disappointing? Did we expect Ferrari to be here toe-to-toe with McLaren? Did we expect them to be clear of Mercedes and Red Bull, or is it a case of that they haven't really gone further forward? If anything, they might have slipped a touch back, but they're in with that kind of pack of Merc and Red Bull, but nobody can catch McLaren.
No, I think it is hugely disappointing. Okay. Because, I mean, they finished second last year by 14 points. They were, in theory, going into that final weekend of the year with the possibility, mathematically, of being World Constructors champions, and there was a decent gap down to Red Bull in third. And now this year, we've got a decent gap down to Williams in fifth. Is there who's coming up behind him? And the gap down to Williams in fifth is currently smaller than the gap to Red Bull was in third last year. It's just not what you always expect Ferrari to be in your top three, I think, regardless. You just expect to see them up there. I think the concern will be Mercedes have leapfrogged from fourth to second. Okay, it's early in the season. Things can happen, whatever. They had the double DNF. That certainly doesn't help your points situation. But they've been massively leapfrogged by Mercedes. Red Bull are exactly where they were before. So they have taken a decent step back. And they've signed arguably one of, if not the best Formula 1 driver of all time, into that team this year. And he's behind your young lad that's... not young lad anymore, but your young lad that's in there. So it is. It is hugely disappointing, I think. How well they can turn that around, different story. I think, for me, possibly the hugely disappointing thing as much as anything, and I'd be interested to get your take on this, it's not like it's all car, and I think that's the concern as much as anything else. When Mercedes finished fourth last year, the car just kind of wasn't as quick as everyone else. It wasn't a terrible car. It wasn't as if they couldn't get the setup right or they made huge errors. The car just wasn't quick enough. Sweet. This year, the car's quicker. So guess what? They're now second. Ferrari's got so much other bungling going on. And I feel like, is that almost worse? That it's unforced errors and self-inflicted as much as the car not being quick?
Feels like a handicap, doesn't it? It does feel like a nice little handicap for Ferrari. And it makes you wonder, doesn't it, when you think back to 24, was that car better than the McLarens? But was it the red shirt and trouser wearing Smurfs from Italy the problem that caused all of the issues for them and why they were 14 points behind and not 14 points in front? I think it's not always been a problem. Well, it kind of has with Ferrari. This is the thing. Like, they were a bumbling bunch of morons until Schumacher turned up in the 90s and just decided to take a sledgehammer to everything and literally build his own team. I think from what I understand and what I've read, he picked and chose everybody that he wanted to be there. And if you weren't up for it, you were gone. And I don't know whether that's what they wanted with Hamilton. I don't necessarily think we live in an era that somebody can go in there and do that anymore either, whereas it felt like the 90s was still a fairly kind of strong and safe place that somebody could go in and wield the axe like that. But all through their history, they've been a bit kind of lapsadaisical with some of these things. And it just feels like it's continuing at the moment, doesn't it? It's how much quicker would the bit of hardware have to be if the fleshy bits behind the pit wall continued to be how they are? Does it actually have to be quicker than the McLaren for it to finish second ahead of the Mercedes? Yeah,
I mean, it's the safe to X driver behind on your overtake, undertake, and your pit window stuff, isn't it? Like, are they trying to? Yeah. Do they have to build themselves a pit window safety gap for their own incompetence on strategy and stuff? I think the concern, as much as anything, is it's not that Ferrari are prone to a howler. It's not that they try and go Hail Mary too often and it doesn't work. It's not Mercedes in... I recently rewatched the 21 season, and there were times there where Mercedes' strategy team was sort of almost quite awe-inspiring, that they very quickly ran their numbers. They saw a situation to throw a Hail Mary, and there's an excellent F1 YouTube video where they made a real bold call on that two-stop, and I can't remember which Grand Prix it was, but they pulled a surprise two-stop, and Hamilton didn't believe it, but whatever.
Spain
might have been, or Hungary maybe. But if Ferrari were throwing those kind of Hail Marys in an attempt to overthrow them and they didn't work, I don't think anyone would have a problem with that. It's that they're not getting the basics right on strategy. They're not getting the obvious stuff right, and that's the problem. It's not people punishing them for having people that didn't quite get their numbers right, so the risky strategy didn't quite work. It's that people aren't getting their basic addition and subtraction right, and you're then tying your own hands. Now, I can't remember, and this is because I'm not an investigative journalist. Lewis Hamilton has a contract for next year, and that's it.
I think it's a 1+1.
So he, in theory, is out of contract.
Yeah.
Officially end of this year.
Yeah, I don't know who has the option to take up that further year. I don't know whether it's Lewis or whether it's Ferrari, but I think it's a 1+1 contract rather than 2 straight up 2.
Bold question then. I like a bold question. It's bold question time. Ferrari, things stay as they are at the minute. All round. Car speed, relative car speed, it can improve or whatever, but relative car speed, strategy, the teething issues. That all stays through the next 16 rounds, or however many more we've got. Is Hamilton there in 26, or does he just go, you know what, I could be doing gala dinners and stuff, put my feet up on the beach with me dog?
I don't think the latter of that happens, because I don't get the impression that he's finished with Formula One. Okay. I think he still really likes it. But I don't know if I can answer for definite whether he's still at Ferrari, but then that opens another entire can of worms that we definitely don't
Hamilton
have time for.
That's what I'm hearing.
As to where he would go in 2026.
Secondary question then, actually, on that, because that's an interesting point. Can you, realistically, if we're being fully honest with ourselves, have gone to Ferrari this year with all the pomp and wank and fanfare that there was of Hamilton to Ferrari?
Yeah.
Can you go there for a season, it not go well, and then you go, actually, I'm going to go to Cadillac now? I feel like once you move to Ferrari and you move out of a very loving marriage to go and try and shag the hot secretary, the hot Italian secretary, I don't feel like you can then go back to another primary school teacher in her 40s who's already got a kid, and that is every other F1 team, surely.
Yeah, I mean, if you would continue that analogy, Sebastian Vettel did that, didn't he, with Red Bull to Ferrari, had the affair with the secretary and ended up with the 50-year-old divorcee with 4 children at Aston Martin. So it didn't really work, did it? And maybe that is what would happen with Lewis Hamilton. I don't know. I wouldn't like it to happen. I think at that point there, I think you get to a point where I think you need to be gracious in retirement and potentially see the writing on the wall. But I don't know. I don't think he's done. I reckon a lot of this kind of Ferrari Hamilton stuff is a bit of shit stirring. I mean, they've kind of gone through and created headlines about the fact that Hamilton's unfollowed everybody on Instagram, but they've highlighted the fact that he's unfollowed the Ferrari Formula One team. Yeah. It's not exclusive to Ferrari. He's unfollowed everybody, including the Lap Down podcast. So get us back.
There's no way for us to verify that he ever followed us now, so you're going to have to take our word on that.
Exactly. Go and investigate that.
Here you go. Investigate that.
But yeah, I don't know. It feels like people are clutching at straws. It has been a relatively quiet week in Formula One as well, so I'm not surprised that some of these headlines and some of these stories are coming together. We've already done a bonus super episode podcast for Franco Colapinto, the preferred driver of the Lap Down podcast, but he does make his Alpine debut this weekend at Imola. You mentioned Hail Marys earlier with Ferrari. Is this a Hail Mary for Alpine, or is this just a cash grab?
I don't even know if it's... I don't think it's either, actually. And I try and remove my bias of this being, him being the official driver of the Lap Down podcast. I think it's probably just good business, and probably the business they should have done in the first place. And I think they're possibly correcting a mistake at this point, and snapping up the guy from the available pool that they could have picked from initially. I think they'd maybe promised someone something already that they, at the first opportunity, have reversed it. Yeah, I'm very curious to see how he gets on. It was highlighted a number of times in response to the Collar podcast, how little F1 running he had before jumping in the car, FP sessions and practice sessions and all the rest of it. He obviously has a lot more of that under his belt now. How quickly can you jump into a new environment? Imola, not really a glory track for a run from the back of the field, or a low run from the back of the field. Like, it's not really one of those kind of places. So I'm not sure, but I have done a little bit of investigative journalism, Dan. And this is the deep level of journalism that you can come to expect on this podcast.
So you scratch the surface then?
The surface is still buffed and polished. We're above that. I've looked at the surface. Franco Colapinto's headshot. We've got his official driver headshot now.
That surface is still shiny.
Now, I'm not a body language expert. I'm going to say that from the top. But I've been analysing body language on headshots. And what I will say, Colapinto's headshot, that's a man that looks like he's standing on business, right? And if I compare that to Jackie Doo's headshot, I'm seeing hunched shoulders. I'm seeing poor arm cross technique, that he just looks like he's a little bit cold and he's a little bit, I'm just going to stand in the corner of the room. Franco Colapinto, I don't think he's got trousers on from the chest down. I think he's got a crop top racing suit on for the picture, and there's an assortment of yummy mummies around in front of him, because the way he's standing there, that's a man that's coming in to fuck this weekend, fuck hard. Doohan, on the other hand, looking like a Pixar character over in the corner. Nothing against Jack Doohan. It's a terrible headshot. So based on the science that I've uncovered here,
Yep.
I think it's probably a Franco podium this weekend.
Hard to argue.
That's my logic. But it is... I mean, we could do, and we may do, in fact, in summer break, because we will be starved for content. Get your words out. We might have to do a power ranking of the official driver headshots, because I have a lot of things to say about a lot of these. So keep an eye out in future for that, because I don't think this is the last we're going to hear of body language expert Alex.
That's a shame. That is a shame. But we're here for it. It's your podcast as it is mine, and it's our podcast as it is theirs.
Here we go.
Actually, no, it's more of our podcast than it is theirs. Anyway, we can do whatever the hell we want. We can investigate if we want. If we don't, we don't have to.
Wonderful segue from you there, by the way. Sorry, I think I have one more thing pre-final thing.
Oh,
Unless
okay.
you were
Yeah,
gonna,
go on.
Were you going to do chicane chat?
No, I
Because-
wasn't going to do lap one, turn one.
So you were, where you said there, it's as much my podcast as it is yours, and it's as much everyone else's podcast as it is ours.
Yeah.
How much is lap one, turn one yours, and how much is lap one, turn one mine? Because I guarantee, I'm making an F1 guarantee here, right? And I don't throw these around willy-nilly. We will have a controversy at that first chicane this weekend, because it has just got every single recipe for a classic, my wheel was by your mirror. No, it wasn't. It was my corner. It was your corner. It was only your corner because you didn't brake. Oh, guarantee you that happens, regardless of whoever is on the front four. I think it's even the front two rows. There's going to be another of these stupid min-maxing rule, apex tire position things. And then it's going to get even more complicated because it is a chicane, so the rules change again because it's a left-hander, then it's a right-hander, and then it's lap one, and there's gravel, and there's not gravel, and there's sausage curbs, and all the rest of it. I'm not excited.
We've seen it before at Imola, haven't we? Certain Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen came together quite well at the start of one of those Grand Prix possibly in that 2021 season that we were just speaking about. Yeah, it's going to happen. It has throughout the course of the season so far. It will continue happening. And I tell you what, one thing you did do there was a really good impression of a couple of Formula One drivers bickering over the radio. Have you been working on that, or is that something that just come naturally to you?
Look, I'm not an investigative journalism, I'm a voiceover artist, so there it is.
And a body language expert.
And a body language expert.
And a Franco Colapinto superfan.
That's the one.
Yeah, it is going to happen, isn't it? I suppose the only thing that it feels like could happen over the next couple of weeks, although Max has still got the ability just to shove it right up there at the top, isn't he? Mm-hmm. So it could well be a Max and an Oscar. I don't actually know. Oscar doesn't even get involved in this shit, does it? He's just too cool for it. He can't be arsed. He just goes, well, I'll follow you for a bit and I'll just size you up.
He did in Saudi, though. He pulled a Verstappen on Verstappen in Saudi.
Yeah, but again, he didn't blink, did he?
No.
Whereas he just comes over the radio and just goes, yeah, he's got the circuit. Whereas Lando phones his mum up and goes, yeah, mummy, just push me off. And then Max just turns around and goes, well, he's a fucking idiot, isn't he? He was there, he shouldn't have been there. And so there's the difference. And Oscar just goes, he's just cheated. Someone sort it out, please. And they go, yeah, of course, Oscar. Yeah, we'll fix that for you.
Slight point of difference, I guess, with this weekend, and this might be slightly telling, or it might end in more of those tremendous tears we just had from you, is that from memory, we've got a big old sandpit on the chicane.
Both sides.
Yeah, there's plenty of gravel to go playing in, and also some pretty chunky curbs that will very easily rip apart a floor, I think, if you try and avoid the gravel by just going, oh, sod it, I'm just going to have to take the curb, there's a good chance that you're losing 2/10 for the rest of the Grand Prix, I think, on that. So it feels almost like it's our highest stakes turn one of the year so far in terms of this stupid dance that we're all doing around who's ahead and whatever, because they feel like high consequences, I think, early doors. And then, do we go chicane at Imola? I'm trying to remember the layout. There's that second one, which again is just, if anything, it's a slightly tighter chicane the second time. And then there's a hairpin. So it might just be constant waffling all weekend.
Fisticuffs could continue. One final thing about Imola. Can we just take a moment, and we do it every year, and it might be the last time we can talk about it, but can we talk about Variante Tamburello, and Variante Villeneuve, and Tosa, and Piratella, and Acqua Minerale, and Rivazza, and Variante Alta, and not just, oh yeah, well, if you look at turn 6 and you take the apex, then give it a name. Give it some history. Pretend like you care about the circuit that you've made in the middle of some shithole city that no one cares about. Please.
Acqua Minerale. Tremendous.
So good.
Tremendous.
So good. Anyway, Formula 1 turned 75 in the week. Yes. Happy birthday, Formula 1. And thank you for giving us a platform to create this podcast on, which some people like and some people don't. But I thought it'd be a good idea, actually. We're not going to spend too much time talking about it because, well, we haven't watched all 75 years of it, and it would be quite difficult. And plus, if you covered all 75 years, you might need more than -6 minutes that we've got left on the podcast. But what's been your favourite moment? What's been your favourite car? And who's been your favourite driver?
I can answer one of them, and one of them will bring a second one. I am at this point like 6 and a bit years into F1, and I have gone back a little bit, and I am filling in some background knowledge, but not to a degree of having favourites. I will forever be a Daniel Ricciardo stan because I think he is sort of like a perfect sportsman to be a fan of, in a sense that off track, he's a complete lovable dick idiot, right? He is, an actual relatable human being that you think, I would genuinely like to go to the pub with you. Or the other way, I would genuinely like to have you come round for like some beers and nachos and we'll watch the Formula One. Like he just ticks every box there. Doesn't matter that I grew up one street over from him in Perth. Doesn't matter that his mum was my Tupperware lady, right? All of that is by the by. I just think he brought the most perfect vibes into it. He could get serious when he needed to. And he was also bloody quick until, unfortunately, he started tailing off as I started taking a proper interest in it. Look, that being true, my main point of reference that I can go to is going to be Monza, even though it was a slightly it wasn't actually that exciting of a Grand Prix. They kind of tore off into the distance. There was never really that much of a threat. It was his own teammate behind him that got told to stay behind him. Like, it was all a little bit sort of constructed almost. But just from a narrative point of view, that was lovely as a fan of someone that, as a fan of him, it was just lovely. All the cars look the same to me. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. They're just different pretty colours. So I I'm not yet at the stage of having lore around cars. I will say I prefer the overall shape of this gen. I'm going to go biggest picture possible here. And the current regs, I think, are a sleeker and better overall looking car because they look like dolphins and they look, they look like they're meant to go quickly because there's nothing sticking out to grab air. Yeah. But I will say the previous regulation set of cars looked fucking badass because you could see why they worked. The barge boards were just outrageous. And I don't miss that barge boards meant that you bump wheels with someone on lap 1 and you're out of the Grand Prix. And I understand why they're gone and whatever. But God, I could respect barge boards. We've lost that now. I understand the same thing all happens on the floor, but we never get to see that. And then you see the Williams and it's just perfectly flat. But I miss barge boards because of the sort of mechanical beauty of barge boards. That I know this doesn't work, but if you put barge boards on the current car, it'd be like, oh, I've got all the little flap. Like seeing Ted go crazy because there's a new little flappy bit on the side of a car that already has 800 flappy bits. Wonderful.
It's when you've got a rear wing on a rear wing attached to the side of a rear wing.
But they're all sideways
you suddenly
now.
go, ooh, yeah, this is going to make a difference.
And you look at it, and the cars look a lot simpler now. That I think people forget maybe how ridiculous the engineering that goes into them is. When we had those exposed barge boards, it was as if they had the side pod off. You could see everything. They were naked. I didn't understand any of the engineering. It blows my mind that someone or a computer or something has thought, if I just twist that by 2 degrees, the car goes 80 mile an hour faster. There it is. Mega. But you're going to give me a slightly more educated answer to the question, because you've got some genuine history and understanding and fandom to dip into.
I don't know whether educated is the right word, as we learned at the start of the podcast, but my favourite moment, and I can still remember it, and I've watched it back a few times since, but it was 1996, so I would have been 7 years old at the time, and Damon Hill won the World Drivers' Championship at Suzuka, and there was a couple of reasons for it, really. One was he was like my... You know, obviously when you're a kid, you are a fan, aren't you? You're a proper fan when you're a kid, and he was the guy I was a fan of. He was the one that I supported. He was the one I wanted to win. So for that to happen was amazing. And then also, and I don't know whether you'll have heard of it, but I would recommend you go and listen to it. But the commentary by Murray Walker over the top of it as well, which means more now than what it did at the time. When he basically had tears in his eyes, and everything was just, I was getting a bit frothy at 7 years old in 1996, I can tell you. So that's my favourite moment by miles.
Why Damon Hill? Sorry to cut you off. Why? Sorry. I know sometimes why kids pick certain teams or players or whatever can be entirely random. It was the first name I saw and I liked his face. But why? Do you know why Damon Hill for young Dan Jads?
It was... He was a British driver racing for a British team. So he was in the Williams. He was an English driver, British driver. Obviously, I was an English Formula One fan, and it was in that era where it felt like a good versus evil type battle. Evil was Schumacher, the Italian, the German, obviously very successful. But it felt like Hill and Williams they were kind of the plucky good guy, you know, the one that never really kind of expected to do that well, but actually on 1996 it happened. It all kind of fell together, and I think that was probably why I've always liked a bit of an underdog. And in that era, and particularly with some of the shenanigans, I'll call them shenanigans, that Michael was up to in 94, 95, I think just ended up kind of strengthening that bond, I think, and kind of went, no, this is the guy I want to invest in. So I find it quite tough sometimes when he doesn't quite get the credit that he deserves when he comes out on Sky. He's been ditched now, hasn't he, by Sky? But I think a lot of people of the modern era forget the fact that he won a World Drivers' title in a period of time that was dominated by Michael Schumacher. And got to put some respect on the name.
Lovely.
Best car, few nominations. 1998 Jordan, recommend you have a look at it. The 2008 McLaren, which was the chrome Vodafone livery one. But the Ferrari 312 T4 by Gilles Villeneuve in like the 70s and the 80s. It was before my time, I wasn't born. But that just looked the bollocks. It looked like a Matchbox car, and it was brilliant. Firstly, it was good. It was a good Formula One car. It was a good Ferrari, which had been fairly rare. But it looks unbelievable. And finally, favourite driver, which might not come as a shock to many or any, but how can you look past 7.5-time Formula One world champion Lewis Hamilton? I think you'd be able to come up with an argument and say that he would be Britain's greatest ever athlete. I think. And
like that.
What a guy!
He won't get called that by anyone else or anything mainstream, but it's a good shout. It's certainly a good shout. Very much so.
Got to be up there. But yeah, happy birthday, Formula One.
Happy birthday, Formula One. Right, should we see if you get Great Britain's best ever athlete working for you this weekend?
Yes, please.
Because we need
I think I get first driver this week as well, don't I?
I will allow you to have it anyway, even if you were not meant to. But we can get some drivers in these cars. Quick standings update, if you've got it in front of you.
Yeah, it's a 4-point difference. 79 points to yourself, 75 points to me. So actually, after 6 rounds, it's been incredibly close. And I think looking back through, I think it is me. I think this is round 7, and I get evens, and I get odds, and you get evens. I think.
Lovely. Right, should we spin that wheel for you? We have,
Let's
of course,
spin the wheel.
Got a new face on the wheel. Franco and his wonderful headshot has joined in. So if one of us, by the way, gets Franco, all bets are off here because outrageous situations. Oh dear. Oh, it's a strong window. Okay. Right.
Oh, I've got the bloke from Ice Age.
He's not got a team principal, but he's got one now. It's Dan Jads. Who needs Christian Horner? Okay, it's a strong start. It's an irritating.
Let's go, Maxi.
Start. That's particularly. This is a weekend as well where I think you just need front 3 row drivers because I don't think anyone's charging through. Could be wrong, but I feel like quali order is very important this weekend, and that means just there's very little room for silliness. Right, I've got to match that. Come on. Okay.
Oh, he's got him.
Okay. Look, a little bit of Ferrari, Lewis Hamilton magic, the first opportunity in Italy. How about that? We haven't even touched on that. It's the first Hamilton Italian showing for Italy's team. Look, hey, it doesn't cancel out Max Verstappen, but at least I feel like I've got a horse in that race, right? They're in the same weight class, so that's promising.
A nice prancing one.
I've got a prancer ready to go.
Right, give me some papaya.
You've not got papaya.
Shit. Well,
You've got you like the British teams, and you've got Aston Martin because you've got Fernando Alonso.
Well, that's all on Max this weekend then.
I think Max has got some work to do, certainly.
He's got some heavy lifting.
Here we go. Come on. Am I 4 points behind, by the way?
Yeah, 4 points behind. I've not led a round.
Not Pierre.
Oh, it's the wrong one.
It is the wrong one. It's the wrong pinky. I feel like I've had Pierre a lot. I might be wrong, but I feel like I've had a lot of Gasly.
You've had him once.
Okay, so me and you have basically, I think, offset each other there almost perfectly. I think you've got a slight advantage, but a Verstappen and Alonso versus a Hamilton and Gasly, it's 2 one-horse races. Oh, look. Gasly's been the stronger performing of the Alpines, so...
He has points.
He has points. Oh, right. Well, hey, it's a triple header now, everyone. Again, brilliantly. So, because of course we need a triple header. What do we go? Imola, Monaco, Spain?
Yeah, I think it might be the other way around. Imola, Spain, Monaco, I think.
Marvellous. Okie dokie. Well, hey, we'll be back on Monday, Tuesday to break down where we got to on things. In the meantime, Dan, where can they find you?
At Dan Chads on the internet if you want to come and have a little hangout over there.
Lovely. And if you want to watch me play games on Twitch, you can. Hey, look, it's Alex. Go and have a squizzy on there. In the meantime, we will see you all next week.